Hey there, before watching this video, I'd recommend you play through both these games. It'll be a lot easier to understand what I'm talking about, and you'll be able to avoid some heavy spoilers if you haven't seen them already. If you think you want to play these games for yourself, feel free to pause the video now and go for it. It's not going anywhere. But if you have played them, or you just don't care enough to play them, then sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. The Switch 2 started its life with a fairly underwhelming lineup. Currently, it relies very heavily on Switch 2 versions of Switch 1 games that don't really add much to the experience. But one game in particular that has truly smashed its way into everyone's hearts is Donkey Kong Bananza. Bananza takes a lot of inspiration from Odyssey if it wasn't obvious from Pauline's starring role, unique open worlds to explore, and of course, New Donk City being the location of the final boss. Since a 3D Mario for the Switch 2 is yet to be announced, this game does a great job filling in for the time being. Almost too good of a job. The freedom and exploration this game gives you has gotten many people to ask the big question: is Bananza better than Odyssey? As you all know, Mario Odyssey is my favorite Mario game. So in this video, I want to determine if Odyssey reigns supreme, or if Bananza dethrones it as the superior game. I know it took a very long time for me to make this video, but not only was I super busy at the time Bananza came out, I also wanted to play through Odyssey again so I could properly compare the two. I broke down the competition into 6 categories: gameplay, story, boss fights, moveset, locations, and collectibles. I figured these were the most prominent parts of each game, so I think it makes sense to judge them based on this. Before we start, I would also like to acknowledge that I am aware many comparisons between the two games already exist, so to remain unbiased, I've done my absolute best to avoid anything related to that. With all that said, let's find out which game is better. Starting with the gameplay. Now, gameplay is a very broad term, so let me start by explaining what specifically I mean when I say gameplay. Both games have very different mechanics, which affects the way the game is played. When referring to the gameplay, I'm more so comparing the style each game goes for. If that's still a bit confusing, you could think of it as level design, but I thought the term gameplay made it broader so that we can talk about multiple aspects. Anyway, starting with Odyssey, we have a classic open style here. Mario has his iconic moveset that can help him traverse each kingdom and find all the secrets hidden throughout. What makes Odyssey's gameplay stand out is Cappy. By throwing Cappy onto certain things, Mario can possess them and use them to his advantage. This allows for a ton of options when it comes to the platforming presented across this game. Mario Odyssey is filled with areas that challenge your abilities with every capture found within the game. Odyssey offers incredibly dynamic platforming, which makes for an overall epic experience. Bananza's got a tough competition in this category. Bananza offers a very similar approach with its gameplay. Just like Odyssey, there's all these sub-areas you can go to as a way of getting more Banandium gems. The areas will test your platforming, puzzle-solving skills, and your skills when it comes to different transformations as well. Oh yeah, Bananza has transformations too. While there aren't nearly as many as there are in Odyssey, the benefit here is that as long as your Banandium meter is full, you can use them whenever you want. The transformations all feel very distinct from one another and can apply to several situations you'll find yourself in. Besides the Bananzas, this game also leans very heavily into DK's ability to smash through just about anything. This is just as satisfying as it looks. It's not a bad stress reliever either. It's really tough deciding which game to give this category to. On one hand, Odyssey has more variety in its platforming and transformations. But on the other hand, Bananza has the convenience of letting you destroy whatever's in front of you and use the Bananzas at your disposal on the fly. It can all depend on what mood I'm in, but if I'm being objective, I think I'm gonna have to give this one to Odyssey. I much prefer having variety over convenience. While DK is by far more convenient and his Bananzas are better than most of the transformations found in Odyssey, I personally get more enjoyment out of Odyssey's obscure captures. It makes for a more interesting gameplay experience. At least for me it does. Now on to the next category. As we all know, these games aren't really known for their storytelling, but it's still something important to consider when comparing them. Mario Odyssey's story is just about as basic as any other Mario game. Bowser kidnaps Peach and Mario must save her. He did also kidnap Cappy's sister Tiara, which doesn't do much for the plot, but it's something. Instead of keeping Peach in one of his castles, Bowser forces her to marry him on the moon. Gotta say, kidnapping is one thing, but full-on forcing someone to marry you is a whole new level of messed up. Clearly, Odyssey isn't known for its plot, but Bananza? Yeah, not really. I will give credit where credit is due. Bananza does a great job inventing a new storyline for this DK game. The DK crew head to Ingot Isle to mine for gold when Void Kong and his company force everyone underground with the intention of claiming the Banandium root, located in the planet core and able to grant any wish. DK goes on a mission to stop Void's villainous intentions and meets Pauline along the way. While the story sounds simple, it's pretty effective, and the best part is there's a few surprises along the way. I like the reveal of Void needing Pauline's special power for the Banandium root to awaken. It makes for a tense fight against him in the Forbidden Lair as Void tries to force Pauline to sing. And not to mention, King K. Rool hijacking the plot just because he can. I think this made for one of the best final boss reveals in gaming history, especially when you remember, he hasn't appeared in a DK game for 18 years. Yet another character revived by Smash Bros. The only part of this story that felt a bit weird to me was the way Pauline kept mentioning her grandma. It happened frequently enough to make me think her grandma was going to be more important than she was, but she didn't affect the story at all besides being mentioned a few times. While neither game are known for their story, I'm gonna give this category to Bananza. Bananza had a much more compelling story with lots of neat twists to keep things interesting. Now speaking of King K. Rool, let's talk about the boss battles in this game. The K. Rool fight was an epic finish to an incredible game. Sure, Void Kong had potential, but nothing beats bringing back an iconic villain from nearly 2 decades ago and packing the fight full of references. This boss makes great use of all the Bananzas and offers a fun challenge to finish off the game. One of the best parts has to be the return of the fake credits. It's a hilarious reference to the original Donkey Kong Country, and the Gangplank Galleon remix goes so hard. It demolishes Ultimate's remix, and I didn't even think that'd be possible. With a final boss this good, the rest of them have gotta be at least solid, right? Yeah, not really. As I was playing Bananza, the thing I disliked the most was the boss fights. There was absolutely no challenge, and they all felt the same. All of them are just punching it a bunch of times until you win. None of these feel like proper boss fights. Now, Odyssey had proper boss fights. They're often attacked for being too easy, and while that's definitely true, I can appreciate each of them having unique mechanics and setting themselves apart. Many of the bosses rely on the captures, which differentiates each of them amazingly well. Sadly, this game's final boss isn't nearly as good as Bananza's, as Bowser's attacks are all on the easy side and feel a little basic. But the sequence where you actually get to play as Bowser is pretty epic. If you count that as part of the boss fight, it more than makes up for an underwhelming Bowser fight. But either way, I'd still say K. Rool is the best boss across both games. As good of a fight as K. Rool is, the boss fights category still easily goes to Odyssey. Odyssey had actual boss fights that required some form of skill or strategy to beat. Bananza just has you spam punches until you win. Now on to Mario and DK's movesets. We'll start with Mario's. Odyssey has just about the best moveset in Mario history. Mario can do anything you can think of. He can long jump, dive, roll, triple jump, spin jump. Every iconic Mario move is here. Mario feels incredibly fluid to control. And what's awesome about this game is none of your deaths will be the fault of Mario's controls. You can maneuver almost any situation. Not to mention, Cappy allows for a ton of possibilities. You can bounce off him, throw him to collect stuff out of reach. There's a lot you can do with him. Mario's moveset has never felt so unrestricted. Now let's talk about DK's moveset. DK's moveset definitely isn't as diverse as Mario's, but it certainly doesn't feel that way. His moveset is pretty much just punching, rolling, and more punching, but I don't see this as a bad thing necessarily. DK doesn't require a very intricate moveset. The simplicity of DK's moveset is pretty relaxing at times. Odyssey has you pushing multiple buttons at once to do something as simple as diving, but DK just needs you to press one button whenever you feel like doing something. And on top of all that, DK can climb walls. It's as OP as it sounds. You can find a ton of secrets and reach lots of high up places with this ability. When it comes down to it, Mario has a wider variety of moves than DK, but DK's moveset is easier to use than Mario's. I could give this category to either game, but I'm giving it to Bananza. Ultimately, DK's moveset is more useful in more situations. The way he can punch or climb just about anything makes him a much more destructive character than Mario. Alright, we're down to the last two, starting with locations. Both games have very unique locations to explore. A lot of Bananza's locations are very similar to ones found in Odyssey, but I don't see that as being a bad thing necessarily. They stand out from each other, so I don't really have an issue with it. Odyssey sets the tone by taking a different spin on existing themes explored from previous Mario games. A lot of them are based on real-world locations as well, which adds some extra flavor. Every kingdom in Odyssey feels remarkably different from one another. Each one has its own enemies, bosses, layout, you name it. You'll get a very different experience playing in each kingdom. Not to mention, the scenery and NPCs are full of life. Something about memorable NPCs really helps cement a game. Everywhere you go in Odyssey brings a ton of joy and collectibles to keep you busy for as long as you'd like. New Donk City was even so iconic it became the final level in Bananza. While Bananza could have done a bit more with it in my opinion, the rest of the locations in Bananza hold up amazingly well too. It's easy to forget that this game takes place underground with how vibrant everything looks. Each location has a very similar energy behind it that Odyssey did. There's tons to explore, fun NPCs to talk to, and detail packed into every spec. Of course, you can even explore hidden areas with DK's ability to punch through walls. The layers in Bananza can feel a bit more linear in comparison to Odyssey's kingdoms since much of them are split across a few sub-layers, but it's not a big drawback to me. I adore the vibrance and details in every location you go to in these games, but I am gonna have to give this category to Odyssey. Bananza's locations feel a little more secluded to me, which isn't a bad thing, but I much prefer the openness packed into Odyssey. Every kingdom is massive here, filled with iconic characters and endless secrets. Don't get me wrong, Bananza offers practically the same elements, but considering the game does take place underground, the feeling of openness and vibrance is taken down a little bit. I think it's great that the game stays true to its setting to an extent by having a great balance of DK themed areas and compact underground sections to remind you that you are in fact underground. Alright, onto the last category, collectibles. Every open world game needs collectibles. Whether they be to progress the game, use them to upgrade your stats, or even just cause why not. Odyssey has some great collectibles, but the main one of course is Power Moons. The Power Moons are found in an unfathomable amount of locations across Odyssey. The game has 999 moons to collect in total. That's insane. Power Moons are used to power up the Odyssey and travel to the other kingdoms within the game. In addition to Power Moons, you can also collect decorations for the Odyssey and even costumes for Mario. There's lots of cool stuff here to collect, but the issue is none of it really affects the game. When you get down to it, the only thing you're obligated to collect is the Power Moons to progress the game. But there isn't really a reason to collect any more than what you need unless you're a completionist. Now Bananza gives you good incentives for collecting stuff. Banandium gems are this game's equivalent to Power Moons. What's cool about them is you'll get a skill point for every 5 Banandium gems you collect. You can upgrade a lot of DK stats, like his punching power, hit points, or even his Bananzas. In addition to Banandium gems, you can get fossils to trade for stuff at shops. You can get a lot of different clothing items to alter DK stats and give him cool abilities. While Bananza certainly has less collectibles than Odyssey, what's nice is they do have an effect on the gameplay. You feel a lot more excited to find stuff in Bananza because of how valuable each collectible is. When you look at the collectibles in each game, Odyssey has more, but Bananzas are more valuable. There's arguments for both sides, but I'm giving this category to Bananza. Collectibles are much more satisfying to find when they have a bigger impact on the game. I'm not one of those people who thinks the amount of Power Moons in Odyssey is a problem. If you don't want to collect them, you don't have to. It's completely optional, so I don't think there's any reason to criticize the game because of that. What is kind of a letdown in contrast to Bananza is how little of an impact Odyssey's collectibles have on the experience. If you like collecting things for the sake of collecting them, yeah sure, Odyssey might be more up your alley, but I think most will agree that Bananza has a better collectibles system. Well, the two games are practically neck and neck. Each one has won 3 of the 6 categories. I'm not lying when I say choosing between these two games is tough. I love both of them to death, and they're easily 2 of the best games I've ever played. I'd give both games a perfect score of 10 out of 10. But ultimately, you came here for me to pick a victor. And after giving it quite a bit of thought, I have an answer. There's no objective way to choose between these two games. It all comes down to personal preference. For me, the game I personally enjoyed more was Odyssey. Sure, maybe I'm a little nostalgic for it, but I just enjoy Odyssey's style a bit more. Odyssey feels like the better structured of the two, with unique locations and memorable boss fights. Bananza has more of a sandbox feel to it, which I absolutely love, but I feel like I'm getting a more solid experience out of Odyssey. I loved every second of Bananza. Every layer, every twist, every turn, every banana. But if you're gonna put a gun to my head, I'm choosing Odyssey. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing, as it really means a lot to me. Okay, bye.